טוב לכולם. ברוכים הבאים במכון הפולני בתל אביב. תודה רבה שבאתם, אנחנו ממש מתרגשים. אני אעבור לאנגלית כי יש לנו זופיה הרטמן שלא מדברת עברית. Welcome Zofia. She flew directly from Poland yesterday to be with you and to have a lecture about her book, recently published. And this is part of okay. The book is here, part of an international festival, which is quite unique because it connects 4 countries, Poland, Israel, Japan, and Lithuania. Very unique project, and as a part of the project we have this lecture here, and tomorrow we have a concert at Studio Annette in Tel Aviv, and feel free to join us. If you would like to come, please talk with Agata, so we will get you tickets. It starts tomorrow at 8:30 at Studio Annette. And we have amazing musician also from Poland. Ania Karpowicz is here. She will perform tomorrow with other musicians. So feel free if you have time to join us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Dzień dobry, shalom, hello. My name is Zofia Hartman. I'm from Poland, and before we start, I would like to add that tomorrow's concert is also to commemorate this story, because all these events about Chiune Sugihara and Jan Zwartendijk are the part of festival called Droga Dō, which is we play camera classic concerts in the places where refugees who received visas from Sugihara and Zwartendijk were. So this is our first stop here in Israel. Then we go to Warsaw, to Japan, to Lithuania. So we very invite you to come to tomorrow concert in Studio Annette. It's 8:30. Yeah. Studio Annette, where is it? Yeah. Entry is free, so we will very appreciate if you would like to come. Okay, so as I said, I'm Zofia Hartman. I'm from Poland, and I'm PhD student right now. I'm also a musician, classical musician. I play on a bow. But why I will talk about Chiune Sugihara? So I wrote this book, Sugihara's List, and it was translated into English 2 weeks ago. I wrote it in Polish, Lista Sugihary, and I'm so happy I have it in English because, you know, I can go to the world with this story. Book is available then. And why I wrote a story about Chiune Sugihara, Jan Zwartendijk, and Polish Jewish refugees who got visas. It's very strange. I will be talking about this on the end of my lecture. It's very, very strange, but in Poland, this is very, it's really, it's not known story. Actually, nobody heard about this story. It's very strange because these diplomats saved Polish Jews mainly. So I will be talking about this on the end, but the most common question to me is why I'm interested in this area of research, because it's very bad known in Poland. It is very strange. We had no exhibition, we have no any streets like here in Tel Aviv, for example. In Jerusalem, there are streets named by Sugihara. So in Poland, nothing. So that's why we would like to introduce the story to Polish people mainly. And I would like to begin this lecture with the quote of Hannah Arendt, which was prominent 20th century philosopher who wrote an essay, We Refugees, in 1940. Hannah Arendt wrote about her experiences as a Jewish woman fleeing Hitler, and her words very well reflect the experiences of refugees who were saved by Chiune Sugihara. A refugee used to be a person driven to seek refuge because of some act committed or some political opinion held. Well, it is true we have had to seek refuge, but we committed no acts, and most of us never dreamt of having any radical opinion. With us, the meaning of the term refugee has changed. Now refugees, or those of us who have been so unfortunate as to arrive in a new country without means and have to be helped by refugee committees. And this is exactly what refugees who received visas felt. So let's go from the beginning. Chiune Sugihara was born in 1900 in central Japan on the island of Honshu. He came from a relatively well-off family, which spurred him from working on the land during his childhood, as other children had to at the time. Even in his youth, Sugihara showed some signs of being courageous and determined man, because his father wanted him to study medicine and become a doctor, but he had other plans. He moved to Tokyo and began to study English. After a year, he had to drop out due to financial problems, but very soon he received a scholarship from the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs to study abroad. He moved to Harbin. This photo of Chiune Sugihara is from Harbin in Chinese Manchuria, which was occupied by Japan at the time. He began to learn German and Russian, as the school he attended was intended to train and educate future specialists in the USSR affairs and to educate future spies, exactly. In the meantime, he had to complete a year of military service in Korea. Then, after this year, he returned to Harbin, finished his studies, and began an internship in Japanese consulate in Harbin. At the age of 29, Sugihara began teaching the Russian language to Harbin students, and also politics and economics of Soviet Union. And at the same time, he married his first wife, Claudia Apollonova, and their marriage lasted 9 years. What is very interesting, during this marriage, he took the name Sergei Pavlovich and converted into Orthodox Christianity. After a few years, he resigned by his own accord in protest against mistreatment of Chinese population by Japanese government. It's a really big act of courageous at the time, and he returned to Tokyo. He divorced and remarried to a younger Japanese woman named Yukiko, which accompanied him the rest of his life. Despite his opposition to Japanese policy toward Manchuria, his diplomatic career progressed rapidly, and in 1936, Chiune Sugihara and his wife Yukiko and one of these children, because they had only one child at the time, were posted to Helsinki in Finland. Sugihara worked at Helsinki for 3 years as a Japanese translator, and it was in Helsinki that Sugihara's family received the news about the outbreak of Second World War. Almost immediately they were sent to Kaunas, to Lithuania, and here the main story begins. As soon as Chiune Sugihara with his wife and children arrived to Kaunas, Sugihara was supposed to find a house to rent and open a Japanese consulate, despite there were no Japanese community. So why? Sugihara was appointed as a Vice-Japanese Consul in Kaunas, Lithuania, but it was only covered to be a spy. He was supposed to gather information for the Japanese government about the actions and doings of the USSR and Third Reich. And now I would like to read you Sugihara's memoirs, because in 1967 he wrote his memoirs, very short, but we can read what he thought about this. In the September of 1939, in accordance with an order from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I opened the first Japanese consulate in Kaunas, the temporary capital of then bourgeois Republic of Lithuania. The consulate was directly under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. There was, in fact, a Japanese diplomatic mission in Riga at the time, although the consulate had no formal contacts with it. As is well known, a few years before the outbreak of World War II, a fanatical movement within the circles of junior officers of the General Staff of the Japanese Land Forces had already been growing, whose aim was to establish closer contacts with the German fascist army. One of the main leaders of this movement was the Japanese ambassador in Berlin, Hiroshi Oshima. Oshima, who led the creation of the so-called tripartite Axis pact between Japan, Nazi Germany and fascist Italy, was most centrally warned by Hitler of Germany's intention to invade the USSR in the near future. Although General Oshima, as the individual responsible for signing the Axis Pact, wanted to believe Hitler's assurances, he could not be 100% certain and still sought in confirmation that the German army would indeed make a move against the USSR. This was, among other reasons, because the Japanese General Staff was very interested in a potential German attack on the USSR from the West and wanted to withdraw the best forces of the Quantum Army as soon as possible. They wanted to redeploy them to the islands of the Pacific Ocean. The quick and accurate determining of the timing of the German onslaught was the Ambassador General's main task. It became clear to me why the staff insisted that the Foreign Ministry opens a consulate in Kaunas. Being a consul in Kaunas, where there was no Japanese colony, I quickly understood that my main task was to accurately inform the General Staff and the Ministry if I learned of any concentration of German troops near the Lithuanian-German border. The aim was to have a new observation point in Lithuania rather than on German side of the border and to gain information of the German army's war preparation from that side. So as we see, he was just a spy in Lithuania. From the very beginning, Sugihara sought to cooperate with Polish intelligence agents. As soon as he opened Japanese consulate in Kaunas, he hired a few Polish agents. They were hired officially as drivers, cookers, and some staff in consulate, but in reality they were highly qualified spies who were supposed to gather information for Sugihara about the actions and about situation at the front, and vice versa. Sugihara informed Polish agents what he learned. So this cooperation had very many faces, and at the same time some of Polish agents kept a close eye for Sugihara and very often passed this information onto other places, but I think it's possible that Sugihara himself, a professional spy, was aware that he was also spied on by his own staff. We need to remember that Japan as a country had a very friendly relation with Third Reich. They were both in tripartite Axis pact. So this cooperation could have only a could be only a pragmatic, but at the same time, in Sugihara memoirs written in 1967, Sugihara described Polish agents in a very, very friendly way. So you see different ways of this relation. Yes, let's go further with my presentation. Here is Sugihara, Yukiko's sister, and 3 children, and probably one of the Polish agents in front of the consulate in Kaunas. And this is the current photo of the Kaunas consulate, exactly where the Japanese consulate was during the war. This building is still exists, and there is a museum, Sugihara House. We can visit this museum. I think this is my photo because I've been there, of course. So here was a consulate. On the porter on the first floor, Sugihara's family lived. Yes, I would like to say a couple words about refugees. What they were, these refugees. After Germany's invasion of Poland in 1939, systematic repression of Jewish population began, and very soon the Nazis set about establishing first ghettos in Poland. And some Jews, especially those better off, with some means and some contacts abroad, craved to escape the country. And Lithuania, still former independent country, seemed to be one of the most realistic havens and refuge for them. And exactly this triggered a very big wave of migration from the Polish lands toward Kaunas and Vilnius. So when Sugihara arrived to Kaunas, it was very difficult to find any free house for rent. It took over 1 week to find any free house because so many refugees from Poland arrived at the time. However, in June 1940, Russian troops entered Lithuania, which formally became a part of the USSR on August 4. And very soon a vigorous Sovietization of the country began. Chiune Sugihara was informed that he was to close the consulate within the next 30 days. And exactly the same applied to all other foreign representatives in Lithuania, included Jan Zwartendijk. Jan Zwartendijk is as much important person in this story as Chiune Sugihara. Jan Zwartendijk was a Dutch who arrived to Lithuania a few years before the war as a director of Philips company in Lithuania, Lithuanian branch, just director of Philips company. He was called the Andrew of Curacao and Mr. Radio Philips. One day he was informed that he is a Dutch consul. Despite having no diplomatic experience, but he had no choice, and he had to be a vice-consul. And probably he wasn't anticipated what will happen in the next months. Yes. After the annexation of Lithuania by the USSR, refugees found themselves in a very, very difficult position. And worried about repressions, they craved to leave the Lithuania and the USSR as soon as possible. Refugees went from consulate to consulate asking for any visas or some passports to escape anywhere, actually, Palestine, United States. But most officials would refuse them because they were interested only in closing the consulates. They were afraid. And here appeared Jan Zwartendijk. One of Jewish students in Lithuania named Nathan Gurtwich recalled that Dutch Caribbean island of Curacao did not require visa. I mean, not visa. They not required visa, and Nathan Gurtwich asked Jan Zwartendijk to note in his passport that Curacao did not require visa to enter. So it wasn't a visa, it was just a note in his passport. And Jan Zwartendijk agreed. Probably, again, he wasn't anticipate that within the next few days he will see hundreds of Jewish refugees in front of the Dutch consulate. Because when Nathan Gurtwich got this note in his passport, he told about this to all his friends, Jewish friends in Lithuania. And as I said, within the next few days, hundreds of Jewish refugees came to Jan Zwartendijk asking about the same. This is the example of Zwartendijk's visa. And the Curacao as a destination was in fact fictitious. Finally, no one got there. And we don't know whether the Jewish refugees were aware that Curacao is fiction. Maybe some of them really believed that they will go to Curacao. We don't know. But what was the purpose of getting these notes in the passports about Curacao? Probably they knew that Japan allowed to issue transit visa to Japan, but the condition to get visa to Japan was to have a visa to the destination country. Jews were allowed to stay in Japan only for 10 days, and they needed to have a destination visa or something like this Curacao note. You understand? Yeah. So over 1,800 of Jewish refugees got an endorsement from Zwartendijk to their passports. And from that consulate, they went to Sugihara consulate. And this is how Sugihara described what happened in the next days in 1940. And he said like this. One August day, early in the morning, there were noises from the street where the consulate was located. The conversation of some people out became louder and louder. To see what's going on, I looked out the window. It turned out that a line of people had formed along the fence surrounding the consulate. It was a crowd consisting of Polish refugees who had come from Vilnius but representing various districts of Poland. They were all extremely distressed about the threat that the approaching German army posed. The numbers increased with each passing day. With tears in their eyes, they asked for Japanese visas so that they could go to other countries through Japan. This is the only one photo of Polish Jewish refugees standing in front of the Japanese consulate in July 1940. And here is the relocation of Asher Goffrein, one of the refugees. I have no idea, maybe one of them. We had been waiting. At about 3 o'clock at night, the secretary, a Pole, came out and invited us into the consulate, treated us to coffee, and asked why we were waiting. We said that we had no money to spend the night in Kaunas or to go back to Vilnius and return to Kaunas a second time. At 5 o'clock, the consul, Sugihara, arrived and asked how we would go to Japan if we didn't even have money to spend the night in Kaunas. We replied that if we didn't even try, then we certainly wouldn't get there. So you see, they didn't have any money, but they had no choice. So what Sugihara did? First of all, he sent a telegram to Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs and asked if he could issue so many visas. And one of these telegrams was like this. Hundreds of people of Jewish descent have come to the consulate in Kaunas seeking to obtain transit visas. These people are suffering greatly. As a human being, I cannot remain indifferent to the requests. Please allow me to issue visas for these people. And the responses from the ministry were negative, but I need to add that Japanese ministry indeed allowed to issue visas, but only for those refugees who had enough means and also who had visa to the destination country, but anyway, not for so many refugees, maybe for some of them, not for thousands of Jewish refugees. So that's why the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Japan refused Sugihara. But what he did, paying no mind to it, Sugihara said, acting solely in accordance with my sense of humanity, out of love for my fellow human being, but anticipating that I would certainly be fired from my job and the ministry, I continued issuing visas to the Poles, to all of those who asked me to do so. I did this until the morning of August 31st, that is, until my departure by train to Berlin. And Sugihara issued visas from morning till night, and first only for those refugees who had Zwartendijk's note, but later to everyone. Yeah, let's stay with this visa. As you can see, Curacao endorsement here. Yeah. There is very, very interesting thing about issuing visas, because not only Sugihara issued visas. I think the best when I read you the words of one of the activities of Polish underground in Lithuania. The Polish underground organization had their own man, a former Polish army officer, who worked in a stamp shop in Kaunas. Sugihara ordered a stamp to issue visa faster in a stamp house in Kaunas. When Sugihara ordered a Japanese stamp there, a second stamp ended up at our organization. Of course, none of us knew any Japanese. None of us could read Japanese. However, we consoled ourselves with the fact that the Soviet controls also did know Japanese. There was a large supply of the prior blank passport booklets, and this made our job much easier. You understand? They just faked and forged visas. And we have no idea how many. So it follows that the exact number of issued visa is impossible to determine, as a large proportion of them were faked by Polish underground organization and also by Polish employers and the Japanese consulate. Yeah, no, not one. Yeah, how many visas were issued? So, a few days ago, exactly, past president of the Jewish Journal GCAR and Archivar Society of the Greater Philadelphia in the USA, Mark Halpern, wrote me an email. And this is his findings. The most common number of issued visa by Sugihara, given in lectures, books, and some articles, is 6,000. We need to remember that children and teenagers below 18 years old didn't receive the old visa, and they went on his parent visa. But we don't know how many children they were. So, yeah, some people say also about 10,000 visas. But as we can see here, Sugihara's memory mentioned 4,700. All these numbers are below 6,000. So probably it was a bit below 6,000, not as many. Actually, it doesn't matter how many. It was a large number still. But I would like to show you these findings, because it's very interesting. In tourist records had less than 2,500 tickets to Vladivostok. Yeah, records of the Copes showed less than 2,500 Jews arriving in Co. So these numbers are extremely different, depending on the organization. Yeah. And the route, let's go back. The route to Japan ran via Soviet Union. Refugees first came by Trans-Siberian Railway to Vladivostok, and from Vladivostok they sailed by ship to Japanese Tsuruga. And the tickets for railway trains for Jews cost as twice for them as for anyone else. So this was probably the main reason why Soviet authorities allowed for transit so many Jews. Just price of the tickets, because we find no any ideas why Soviet authorities during the war allowed to transit so many Jews. And what's very important to say, the travel arrangements were handled by the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee and Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. So Jews in Lithuania had no money, as I said. Maybe some of them had, but most of them didn't have. They needed to sell everything they had. Some of them had family abroad, mainly in United States, and some of them just got money from the American organization. And this is why they were able to escape from Lithuania. Just Jews abroad helped them, exactly. And what happened next? please imagine that you go via 2 weeks via Soviet Union by Trans-Siberian Railway to Vladivostok, and you are not sure whether they allowed to get to the ship or not. You have no idea, but you have no other choices. You go there you try to rescue ourselves. So they arrived to Vladivostok, sailed by ship to Tsuruga, and what next? They had only 10 days, but didn't have visas to other places. And here appears Tadeusz Romer, Polish ambassador in Japan, who played an incredibly important role in helping Jews to organize their lives in Japan and to help them extend their stay in Japan more than 10 days and acquire visas to the destinations countries like USA, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Palestine, or countries in South America, countries in South Africa, and even Asia, Burma, which I really like here. Burma really allowed to entry for 50 refugees. And now I would like to again read you the quote of Tadeusz Romer. In the correspondence between Romer and August Zaleski, he was Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs, we can read Romer's words like this. More than 95 of the refugees with confirmed or presumed Polish citizenship who have so far arrived in Japan are Jews, if not only by religion, then at least by descent. This phenomenon is explained by the organized support they find among their own abroad. We cannot leave these refugees of ours in Japan, which in trust has given them their hospitality of transit. The reason why we cannot do so is not limited to the fact that this country is, after all, on the opposite side of our barricade from our barricade, which could lead to our refugees being sent into concentration camps in the event of war complications, but above all because in the event of a failure to fulfill our obligations, we would close the road through Japan for further refugees that may still, from one reason or another, hope to save from the Soviet hell. Enabling the Jews to depart from Japan is urgent, with over 1,500 of them already here. The Japanese government has imposed entry restrictions that have put other incoming Jews, including Poles who we care about, in a dire position. I'm doing what I can to prevent this. And Jews, as I said, were allowed to stay in Japan only for 10 days, and Tadeusz Romer really made every effort to help them. Finally, a large group of refugees ended up in Shanghai ghetto, over 1,000 of them. And I found some photos from Shanghai ghetto. Here you can see findings of families of Jewish refugees. Probably most of these people are from Poland. And they arrived. Shanghai ghetto wasn't a concentration camp. After a year, the Shanghai ghetto was closed, and they went to the other countries. Some of them stay in Japan, but most of them went to the US, Canada, and other countries. And Romer's final report states that, thanks to the efforts of the government of the Republic of Poland, the following visa quotas were allocated to Polish asylum seekers migrating to the Far East: 250 to Canada, 80 in total only for a group of rabbins and rabbinical students, 65 to Australia, 30 to New Zealand, 50 to British Burma. Furthermore, in cooperation with the Polish embassy, about 400 certificates were granted to individuals heading to Palestine. And government agency also helped fulfill individuals' visa requirements for around 300 people to the United States and approximately 100 people to Central and South America. South America, I mean, it was Paraguay, for example. In September and October 1941, due to the withdrawal of the embassy of the Republic of Poland in Tokyo, Japanese authorities transferred all remaining refugees from Poland still residing in Japan, a number of approximately 1,000, almost exclusively Jews, to Shanghai. I personally took care of their needs, arriving in Shanghai myself on November 1st, 1941, then the outbreak of the Pacific War, thwarted our efforts to relocate all remaining refugees, thanks to a newly acquired visa quota to Australia, New Zealand, British Burma and Palestine. As a result, about 950 Jewish refugees, Polish citizens, remained in Shanghai. Yeah, and these are students of the Mir Yeshiva primary school in Shanghai after escaping the war. And this is probably very, this is a common story in Japan. For example, in Tsuruga Museum, there is an exhibition about Sugihara, and also part of this exhibition is about these kids. They were 75 kids. It was a whole yeshiva saved by Zwartendijk and Sugihara. Yeah. What happened to Sugihara and his family when they left Kaunas? So first of all, they went to Königsberg, then to Prague, then to Bucharest, and in 1944, Sugihara was awarded the Order of the Sacred Treasure in Japan. What does it mean? Some of researchers and some of people say that Sugihara was failed from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Japan because of his actions in Kaunas. Probably not because of it. As you can see, Japan awarded him the order very soon after the war. So they really well know what Sugihara did in Kaunas. In 1944, for 2 years, Sugihara was interned with his family in a Soviet prisoner of the camp for 18 months. And then in 1946, they returned to Japan via the Soviet Union, the same route what refugees went a few years before. And in 1947, Sugihara was asked to resign by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Japan, obviously due to the staff reduction, according to the Yukiko, his wife, because of the incident in Lithuania. So we don't know. Personally, I think it's not because of the incident in Kaunas, because as we can see about this award. But I don't know. I really like this photo. This photo I've took from the Nobuki's Facebook. Nobuki is son of Sugihara. So many years after the war, Sugihara wasn't recognized as a hero, and it was silence about his actions in Kaunas. Sugihara had no idea how many refugees he saved, and also even any of refugees used his visas. The same about Zwartendijk. They didn't know about it. And in 1969, Chiune Sugihara was found by some of by one of the refugees who got the visa, and Israel invited them in 1969, and they came here. And this is one of the Sugihara's son on the camels. They go to visit Zahar Warhaftik, which also got a visa from Zwartendijk and Sugihara. So they were here in Israel, but still Sugihara at this year wasn't awarded by title of Righteous Among the Nations by Yad Vashem Institute. Sugihara is the only one Japanese who, as I said, was awarded by Righteous Among the Nations in 1984, which was 1 year before his death. Fortunately, he knew about this title, and in this photo in 1985, it was just a few months before he died. Here is a Yukiko and Chiune with Itzhak Shamir, Israeli Foreign Minister, future Prime Minister of Israel. And here, Sugihara on this photo already knew how many refugees he saved. So fortunately, before his death, he found out about what happened. Why so many years it took to give Sugihara the title of Righteous Among the Nations? Because this institute in Jerusalem has very strict rules of giving this title. Sugihara didn't save Jews directly from Holocaust. Holocaust and first concentration camps opened a few months after he issued so many visas. So because of these restrictions, Yad Vashem was thinking for almost 30 years after the war. Zwartendijk waited a little bit longer because he got a title of righteous in 1997, so very, very long time. But fortunately, they got this. And now I'd like to say a couple of words about the collective memory about Sugihara, because this is very interesting how Sugihara and Zwartendijk are remembered in the different countries. As I said at the beginning, I wrote my book because nobody in Poland heard about Sugihara. Maybe some of people, especially Jews, heard about this story, but most of people never. It's very, very strange. I'm from Krakow in Poland, the city where Schindler actions happened. And every day I see the museum of Schindler list. And long queue is people, especially from Germany and Israel, waiting to see this museum. So Schindler saved much less people than Sugihara. Okay, it doesn't matter how many, but still you see how many people want to remember Oskar Schindler. And about Sugihara, we had no any exhibition, we have no streets, parks. There was only one conference in Poland about Sugihara. It's very strange because he saved mainly Polish citizenships and Polish Jews. So why? It's very, very interesting question. What is here? In Japan, the very common way of teaching children about anything is by comics, by mangas. So I found it was not so easy to find because I don't speak Japanese, but I found some mangas about Sugihara, and probably you have so many mangas about Sugihara. I found many of them. Here are some examples. You can see, oh yeah, I forgot to say you about this. So it's impossible to determine the exact number of visas because it's said that Sugihara issued his final visas also from the window of the departing train to Berlin. And in commemoration of these events, in Kaunas you can see a plaque commemorating what happened on the railway station. I don't know it's true, but you see. Yeah. They probably say here, thank you, yeah, something like this. So this is, I heard that Japanese children learn about Chiune Sugihara and Jan Zwartendijk in their primary schools. So even in schools they had the education about this story. And here is a very interesting things. These are post stamps from African countries like Mozambique, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and in English I don't know how, New Guinea and Gambia. And it's very weird what Sugihara had common with African countries. Maybe some of you have an idea why different African countries produced these stamps. It's very, very weird, actually. Here you can see Polish Jewish refugees being happy of getting visa. Yeah. Yes. Maybe, yeah. I have no idea. Some people... Sorry? Maybe, but not so many of them went to African countries. Some of people, because I really like to show these pictures, some of people say that African countries produce collection series. But still, how did they know about Sugihara before he was awarded the title among the righteous among the nations? Very weird. So even African countries had post stamps, and in Poland no one knows about Sugihara. And there is also uh, it's not such extremely bad known. I found about in internet a few years ago. I've been working in a Jewish museum in Krakow, and somebody all showed me. So it's nothing interesting how I found it about it. But the most interesting was when I found that nobody heard. I was in shock actually. Yeah, and there is also cosmic commemoration, because a few years ago somebody called an asteroid number 25893 by Sugihara name here. So Sugihara is also on the orbit of the yeah, it's very interesting. What about commemoration in Israel? Yeah, there was many. There are streets, parks, as I said, some squares, conferences. Nobuki Sugihara, the son of Sugihara, which is still alive, make every effort to commemorate his father all over the world. So he's very engaged about this. So the word, my book is the first book in Poland, but not the first book on the world, of course. So in Poland it's a sensation, you know, it's very new thing, which is very weird. But Sugihara is remembered on the world. What about Jan Zwartendijk? Not as much as Sugihara. Why? Probably because he is Dutch. It's not such interesting as a Japanese man. Because I have no idea why he's commemorated so little in compared to Sugihara. Maybe he issued much less visas than Sugihara. I have no idea. And here is my last. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Very. Yes. Exactly, probably yes. Sugihara is only one Japanese who helped Jews because they had no Jews. Maybe some community of Jews were in Harbin, but it's a little community, so it's very exotic, you know. And here is the first and second page of Sugihara's list, which he written in Prague 2 years after his stay in Kaunas, in Lithuania. This is how it looks like. And here is Marta, which I met a few minutes before this lecture. Where is this book? I don't know. Where is my book? Do you see? I don't know, but on. Yeah. On the end of this book, you can see the whole list with hundreds of surnames, and there are also families of Marta from Australia. Yeah. I need to give you a mic because I yeah. Some of them stayed in Japan indeed, in Kobe, exactly. But most of them went to the other places. You know, Japan for these people, they didn't speak Japanese. They wanted to go where they had a family. Most of them to United States, maybe Palestine. Some of them, yes, for sure. Maybe for some years. Some of families went to the other countries after a few years. But still, most of Jewish refugees went to the other places. Most to United States, of course, but some of them to Australia, New Zealand, yeah, and even to Burma, which I really like because it's very strange. Yes. Yes, do you have any more questions, or would you like to say something? Maybe you would like to add something from the Japanese point of view.
Good morning, and thank you very much for your time and for your support to to introduce Sugihara to the world, I'm from Embassy of Japan here in Tel Aviv. My name is Yoshi Higuchi. Okay, two things. I, of course, grew up in Japan, 80s, 90s. Then we didn't learn about Sugihara because we didn't know him. And also in the public knows, we didn't have any information. Also, almost there was no aware about him. Just recently, I think after 2000, there was some change among society and to commemorate him, and also, you know, his family supporting, and his town in Japan also recognize him, and so try to introduce his legacy to the people. So now there are more awareness in Japan. While again I was in Japan, there was no awareness, and there was no manga when I was a kid. And the second things regarding, now I'm working at the embassy, so regarding the, you know, the reaction toward Sugihara's cable to Japan, he requested, of course, to issue more visa to Jewish, but you know, there are many saying either Ministry of Foreign Affairs Japan refused or reply some different answers. Okay, I'm working at the embassy, so I know actually, I think I can guess what's happened. And also this is kind of very close to the official answers from Japanese foreign ministries. You know, to issue visa, there's very clear criteria, usually 4 or 5. And what answers that Sugihara got from Japanese foreign ministry from Japan is, okay, you can issue in accordance of these criteria. Of course, as you mentioned, there's many people who came to the consulate office, no money. So they didn't have enough criteria, but he issued the visas. So it means, I think the ministry didn't refuse his request, but this ministry just sent the guidelines, but he didn't follow his guidelines. Was good or not? I think then he didn't get any judge. I think even later he didn't get any judge. Even now, we said, okay, we said his behavior is very courageous. If I were him, I didn't know I can issue visa, because same situation here. We can issue just based on very clear criteria. Even though I feel, okay, I really want to issue, but if not fulfill the criteria, I cannot. Okay, so I think this is a very practical and historical fact behind this story. Yeah, so, but again, and also the resilience of Sugihara, as you mentioned, I don't think because of these issues, because he was promoted during his service. And, you know, Japan lost in the war. So the number of, you know, the employees, the ministries, not only foreign affairs, many ministers was cut. So I think he was one of it. So this is a common understanding. But anyway, story is very interesting, also very connect to people between even here in Israel. You know, I live here in Tel Aviv. And one day I went to the sauna in my apartment. And she said, you know what, I have very connection with Japan. I said, okay, what kind of connection? You know, here in Israel, there means like yesterday my family just back from Japan, my son studied in Japan, these cases many. But she said, you know, my family survived because of Sugihara. I was like, wow, okay. So it means it's this small, one piece of visas connect many peoples and human beings. I'm very proud of it, and very thanks of your support, and also all entire project to introduce Sugihara to the world. I'm very appreciative. Thank you.
And I would like to add that many recipients of Sugihara's visas, as you said, are in touch all over the world. And I know it because when I have some online meetings for the US people, they text me via email, for example, and I know they are in touch. Grandchildren. it's very hard to establish how many grandchildren are still alive, but it's approximately 60,000 of people right now. And you know, I know a lot of them. Actually, for example, Martha, you're here, and for example, when I have meetings in Poland, sometimes somebody upped their hands, and yeah, my grandmother got these, or somebody from my family. Yeah, what?
So my name is Ania Karpowicz, and I would like to invite you again for tomorrow's concert. And what is striking me when Zosia is telling the story and presenting her research is that they didn't know each other. It was not a group of rescue, like organized group. They all acted decently, not knowing if it's gonna be ever enough for these people to be saved. And that's really touching because they came from such different cultural backgrounds: Japan, Netherlands, Poland, Lithuania. And so that's why we want to follow the route of refugees. And we start tomorrow night in Studio Annette. Then we go directly to Sugihara's house. And we were very much pressed to play in Kaunas Philharmonic, but we refused. We want to follow exactly the route of the refugees and to give sound to the Sugihara's house. Then we go to Tsuruga, to Port of Humanity, the exact place where the refugees landed, and that was the first safe place for them. And in many testimonies they say, we got apples to eat, but it was much more than apples. It was dignity. We were seen as humans again. And of course we are going to play in Poland, behind the great synagogue of Tłomackie, which was destroyed by the Nazis. There is a building of a Jewish library that survived with burned floor, and on this burned floor we will also play to commemorate the Polish Jews that went throughout this route. And in every project I start, it starts somehow of rebellion or some kind of, you know, some kind of inner need. And to me, when I went to Kaunas, or when you see Tsuruga or Yaotsu, you always have the map starting in Kaunas. And to me, the missing part was most of these people were from Poland. Of these people were from Warsaw, Będzin, Krakow, and so on. So we want to add this to the story. So feel invited, and we are really thrilled. It's just the first edition. We hope to follow this path every year with new music. And also what is important to me is that we don't want to inflict any kind of narrative. Like, who owns the story? Is it Polish story or Japanese story or Lithuanian story? So we invite musicians from all the countries, like Naruhiko Kawaguchi, Christina Reiko Cooper, Tel Aviv Wind Quintet, for them to join us and to find a common narrative around it, and commemoration and cooperation. And not just to prepare some kind of musical program in Poland and then export it around the world. So we're really thrilled, and if you only have time tomorrow, please join us. Classical music. Sure. Tomorrow's program is The Way to the Past. So we start with 20th century music, and we go back. We start in Japan with music by Toshio Hosokawa and Toru Takemitsu, and then we go back. We go back through Alexander Veprik's music, educated in Warsaw but active in Lithuania and Ukraine. Then we will play Zvi Avni's music, and amazing thing that probably he will be there with us tomorrow. He's 98 years old, and he's a founder, like really a founder of Israeli contemporary classical music. An amazing figure. And so we will play his music as well. And we will play music by Alexander Tansman, Polish Jew, also a refugee. And we will end with Leo Smith. And so we'll go from a blurred memory to life. And the last piece is going to be the sextet by Leo Smith. He's a Dutch composer to honor Zwartendijk. He's a Dutch composer of Jewish origin, and he will play his marvelous wind sextet with Shir Zemel and Tel Aviv Wind Quintet, written in 1933. So we have composers from all the countries and musicians from many countries, and a way back from a loss of identity, from the meditation on time, like in Hosokawa's pieces, through music of Lithuania and Poland to Netherlands. And actually Leo Smith is the only composer of all composers we played during the festival who perished in Holocaust. He was murdered in Sobibor death camp. So he had his own Droga do, his last way, from Netherlands to Poland. So that's why we include him in the program. So that's about it. Thank you.
And I have two more things, one to read and one to show you. As I said before, some children of recipients, some grandchildren of recipients text to me, and I'm so grateful about this. And a few days ago, Julie Vasquez from United States sent me her memories. I would like to read them on the end. On August 24, 1939, my father, Berek Zielonka, was traveling to Warsaw on business. The torpedo train stopped in Piotrków. These are Polish cities. There, my father saw a newspaper headline about the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. He decided to get off immediately and return to Sosnowiec. He arrived there at 2 p.m. 2 hours later, at 4 p.m., my father, my mother, and I, then 2 years old, were already on the train to Kielce. On August 31st, my father went back to Sosnowiec. He wanted to persuade the rest of the family to flee, but no one would leave. That same evening, he returned to Kielce, and the next morning, September 1st, the war broke out. He was on the last train to depart before the tracks were bombed. During the night of September 3rd to 4th, my father managed to persuade a truck driver to take us out of Kielce. On September 6th, we arrived in Lublin, just as the fleeing Polish government did. Our stay lasted only a few hours. That same evening, we boarded a bus heading further east. At a junction, one rode to Lwów, the other to Łódź. My father hired a horse and cart. There were air raids. We had to take shelter from the bombs. This is my father's childhood memory. We stayed in Łódź and were there when, on September 18th, the Red Army entered. I remember standing with my mother on the street as Soviet tanks rumbled past us. At first things were quiet, but soon the Soviets announced that as of the October 8th, all residents of Western Ukraine would become Soviet citizens. That included Łódź. My parents decided we had to flee further to Vilnius, which the Soviets had promised to return to Lithuania. As we know, they didn't. On October 12th, we left Lutsk in a cattle car. The trip took 3.5 days. Vilnius also offered no prospect of a permanent refuge. My father, together with other refugees, obtained a so-called non-visa from Jan Zwartendijk, non-visa, the Dutch honorary consul. The refugees had a stamp made that looked official and stated that no visa was required for the Dutch Antilles. The next stop was a transit visa, and this is where Chiune Sugihara comes in. To reach Japan, we had to cross the Soviet Union. My parents took me to Kaunas to see the Soviet official. In nursery school, I had learned Russian songs, and I sang Midlands for him. He pretended to be annoyed, but after a few months of repeated requests, the visas were issued that very day. Travel across the USSR required purchasing an in-tourist package, hotels, meals, even tickets to the Bolshoi Theater in Moscow. They went to theater. It was included in the tickets price. It's very weird. Payment had to be in US dollars, which could be obtained only on the black market. A very risky undertaking, but my father had no choice. On December 27, 1940, we left for Moscow, where we spent 3 days. On December 31st, we boarded the Trans-Siberian Railway Express to Vladivostok. On Journey 11, we boarded a ship to Tsuruga, Japan. It was a freighter with makeshift passenger accommodations. During the entire 2 days voyage, only 1 meal a day was served. We lived in Yokohama, Japan, until May 1941. On May 18th, we arrived in the United States. Yeah, so these are memories of the daughter of recipient of visa. So you can see how it looked like. The Jews who decided to escape were very likely, because 2 months 2 months later, a first ghettos was established. So, and also at the end, I would like to show you something. Okay, so this is a very short animation painted by my friend, and the music is made by my boyfriend, and this is like a trailer to a longer animation. This is an artistic form of presentation, this story, a little bit dramatic. As you heard, some of Jews had also a ticket to the theater in Moscow, but we need to remember that there were many transfers, and Jews had very different experiences of this journey to Japan. Yeah, thank you very much. This is the premiere of this animation. Is very, very short, but we are going to extend this animation. It's all painted by hand, my friend, so I'm sorry. My friend from Poland, Joanna Ruk-Ociepka, it's not a lie at all. And the music was made by my boyfriend. So thank you so much. And we invite you tomorrow. If you would like to get a book, there is it's possible there. So thank you so much again.